Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I am your host, Brent Thomas. Welcome to the show that has marked the world with the stroke of the paranormal. I don't even know what that means for sure, ladies and gentlemen, but I came up with that off the top of my head. That's just how I roll here. Just trying to getting set up. We got a lot of things, cool things coming on for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. But before I go any further, let me just welcome my good friend and co-host, Mr. Don Longbeard.
Yay, he's on the show. Oh, that's me. Sorry. Yes. Hi. Of course, that's me.
That's you. Of course it is. There's not many beards like that out there, Don.
God, no, and I thank God for it.
Often imitated, never duplicated. That's right. So how you doing, Don?
Doing good. Today's Saturday, right?
You're here, right?
Well, it could be Wednesday.
It's Saturday. We are also on TFR Live, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. Sweet. As we are on streaming live on YouTube. So
on this beautiful Saturday.
Absolutely. We are ready to roll.
Oh, I finally got my notification. We're on. Wow. Now I can get into the chat room.
Now Don can get all social on you, which is always a good thing because, Don loves to mingle. He's a mingler. But anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. And throughout the course of the night, we are happy to have call-ins. You can always call in and be a part of the show, especially if you have questions for our guest tonight. But I'll get to him in just a second. But I just want to say the call-in number is 720-923-0500. And, of course, now I want to welcome our special guest tonight, who is a great friend of mine, co-investigator of the Coloma ghost town.
Yay!
And actually the lead investigator. I actually just kind of followed him around.
Head guy in charge.
But he was the one directing our efforts and setting it up and making me look good in the process. So, of course, I'm forever indebted. But our guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Dan Pruitt, who's joining us live from his secret paranormal lair.
Can you say that again? Sorry.
Secret paranormal lair.
How are you, Dan?
Doing good. How you guys doing tonight?
I think we're great, and I'm really excited to finally have you on to discuss the Coloma investigation because it was an incredible experience, and one which we of course streamed live, which was really groundbreaking for the portal. But we also recorded a bunch of footage that has now been posted live on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/paranormalportal. But it was really such a neat experience, not only to be there with you and with Duke and all of the Bigfoot investigators that were up there for the first night, meeting a lot of new friends and meeting a lot of old friends that I'd never met before. But it was just such a cool experience. I don't know how to, what to say about it, except that it was surreal to me. And I really miss it, to be honest with you. I really miss it because it was such a great experience of camaraderie and discovery. And it was my first time investigating a ghost town. So it was just amazing. What did you think of it?
Yeah, aside from just the natural beauty and everything else, I got to give a big shout out to all the Duke and all the guys up there. It was, such a pleasure to meet them and, kind of traipse around in their world for a little bit. And I think we kind of had this nice little Venn diagram of the paranormal going on up there. And definitely that's a testament to, you and this show and Dawn, you guys bringing paranormal community together and kind of reflecting that paranormal, that unity that's so necessary these days. So good on you for setting it up, and thanks again to those guys for letting us tag along.
Yeah, I really wish I could take more credit for it, but it was really Duke that kind of pulled it all together and said, hey, we're going to be up here. It'd be cool if you came. And besides, we're going to be at a ghost town. You might want to check it out. It was I think I would.
You got a trifecta going there.
Yeah, and of course, you were the first name on my list. Yeah, and of course, I would love to have MCAT up there as well. But he wasn't in their neighborhood at the time. But it was just an amazing opportunity to not only do an investigation, but to do a groundbreaking investigation up there. That's, I don't know how many people have really been up there in that area, but I've never heard of a paranormal investigation of the place before.
Yeah, from what I could see, because I did a little bit of research ahead of time, looking at some topographical maps and everything. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of paranormal investigation going on up there. There's definitely some adventurers going out and looking for mine shafts and things of that nature. But I really don't think anyone's done very comprehensive, or at least they haven't published or made note of their investigations there. So I think we were pretty well ahead of the curve.
Yes, and ladies and gentlemen, Dan and I have talked about it, and of course we've communicated with Duke, and we're planning on making this an annual journey, and it would be neat if some of the listeners could accompany us up there and help out with the investigation.
I'd like to go.
Well, you're kind of you're like already invited because you're part of the show. So it's like you should be there anyway. You should have been here this time, but unfortunately your personal schedule didn't work out. But it would really help. I think as expansive as that area was, Dan, just two of us up there, I think we could have probably done such a much better job if we'd been able to cover so much more ground, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the nature of these things. That's a lot of wide open space. We had a little bit of time during the daylight to kind of recon around, figure out where we're not going to break our ankles, where we might fall off the side of a mountain. Just kind of get a feel for things. But I think the more we do it, the more kind of organization we'll put into it, and we'll get as close as we can to bringing the lab to the outdoors anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been neat to set up, some perimeter cameras here and there, and seeing if we could have caught.
Yeah, and have some people walking around with just a spirit box, handheld spirit box, and asking questions and
right, and just a digital recorders and full spectrum cameras. Just taken, because it was such a huge place, and I think that's what really surprised me when I heard of Coloma Ghost Town. I was kind of thinking it would be just this little collection of huts, because it was on top of a mountain. It was a mining community, but it was really much more spread out than I would have guessed once we got up there and saw how far apart things were and how much ground it actually meant. I was really surprised.
Yeah, there's really, and something we were commenting about while we were up there was what it had to take to get building supplies, saws and mining equipment and everything up to the top of that mountain. Because I mean, we were damn near 7,000 feet up.
Wow.
And we came up a mostly paved road and dropped into 4 high just to kind of feel like we were doing something. But for the most part, I don't think you even really needed 4-wheel drive to get up there. So it was really accessible, but really remote at the same time.
Yeah, and between the two times, now we were, of course, up there during the daytime, and then we were up there with the community people. But the next day, it was just you and I up there, and it was such a different experience between the daytime being up there and the nighttime being up there. It was just like
which was more creepy, the daytime or the nighttime? Was the nighttime more creepy to be up there?
I think it probably the nighttime, just because you can't see. I mean, there was a little bit of ambient light from the stars and whatnot, but for the most part, you can't see anything. And it's not like some of those picturesque woods that you see in movies. There are tripping hazards, and there were lots of big rocks. Glacial. I can only think it's some kind of glacial aftermath or something, because there were just giant stones and boulders all over the place, and if you weren't going to get clotheslined by a tree, you were going to trip your ankle up on a big rock.
Right.
Yeah, not to mention the uneven ground. I mean, it was it's not like a football field.
So it was more just because of human failure in our senses that that we don't have the expanded senses as, say, a dog or a cat for that matter. So more of that kind of thing.
Right, and I mean it puts you more on edge, right? So it heightens your senses. So in one aspect, I guess it's good, because you're coming out there to observe pretty subtle activity most of the time, and you get pretty tuned up. So hopefully you catch it, right?
Yeah. Well, it was. I think for me the night was much more freaky, because in the daytime, and it's not even, we really didn't walk around a whole lot during those night investigations. We were either in that hunting cabin and we were just in that space, or we were down in the town proper, and we were pretty much just around the truck. I mean, neither of us
Right.
went far away
Right.
from that because, I mean, it's just like Dan was saying, it's like being surrounded by a curtain of blackness. It was just nowhere to go. But just the idea, I guess, of that being alone up there and realizing all of the dangers that are present, real world dangers
Right,
that
right.
that aren't paranormal in essence. That there's bear up there's wolves up there are lots of mountain lions up there. Mountain lion was just sighted like a week before we were up there, up in that
Right,
area,
right.
and so here we are, two guys just up there. We had no form of defense whatsoever outside of I could have maybe grabbed a tripod and tried to fend off a grizzly or something, but
I can see you doing a whip in a chair act with it. Hey, get back! Settle down, Andy.
but it was just really intense, that whole idea that we were really in a lot of ways at the mercy of what was going on up there, and if anything had gone sideways,
Right.
there was no help. I mean, there wasn't even cell signal up
Right.
there outside of 2 bars that I could stream with. In a lot of places we were up there, it was really hard to get reception. So
Right.
I think in the areas we were, it would have been fine. Like we could have called somebody, but even then, there's you're going to be in a world of hurt for a while before someone makes it to you.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's not like there's a neighborhood watch up there, unless the neighbors are Sasquatch.
Yeah.
The neighborhood watch Sasquatch. Get it?
Oh,
Sorry.
God. Oh.
It was really funny in my head. But it was a good time. I really had a lot of fun. And I think the cabin to me was probably the most freaky because I felt the most exposed in that situation. Having to be outside to get that bandwidth to be filming in there. But the cabin itself felt really freaky too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that cabin, when we were in there briefly that first night, a couple of us made our way over there, and no big deal. It was just an empty cabin, and a few things to look at, and we were trying to track down for the first night we were out there. We were trying to track down the source of some lights that we saw just out in the middle of the woods. As far as we could tell, we didn't know what the hell was going on.
Right.
So a couple of the guys that were up there with Duke and us, we started taking off to see if we could find these lights, because we knew there was a logging road over there, but we didn't know how the hell anything got up there without us hearing it, a vehicle anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
And then on top of that, the angle that the lights were shining, there was just, a car would have had to be, like popping a wheelie to get lights up that high. So
Right.
we didn't see much over there that night. And then the next day when we had to use the proper 4-wheel drive to get up there on the logging road.
Yeah.
So there's no way in hell, looking at the other vehicles that were unaccounted for at that time that were with us, no way in hell a minivan could have made it up there, because it just wasn't happening.
Right.
And the longer we sat there, the more uncomfortable it felt. And I think we got to the point to where we were told to leave. And,
Yes.
and that's when we packed it up.
And we listened.
Almost overstayed your welcome.
Yeah.
Now what I did,
But it was getting really uncomfortable there.
yeah,
We were not wanted there. We were intruding.
the thing that really surprised me about the hunting cabin was the fact that during the day when we were in there and checking it out before we actually did our investigation there, I was I had 2 bars all the way through there. I was looking at my phone to see where where we would be if there was any problems, just checking to see how it metered out. And I always had 2 bars in that whole location. But after night came, it was just, there was no signal in that place. And then I had to stand outside all by myself, and I was just like, I don't like this.
It kind of sucks.
And then those damn birds, Dan, those damn birds.
Oh yeah. That for a second I was like, holy crap, there is something seriously out here. But we did the right thing. We found the logical explanation, and there it was.
Yeah, it was the loudest damn wings I've ever heard, though. I mean, they weren't like right above our heads. They were a good 50 feet in the sky, but they just...
That was a big bird then.
I don't know what kind of
That was
birds.
huge. It was a giant. It looked like a giant,
Like a giant
bigger than a
grouse.
crow. It's blackbird,
Yeah.
or raven, or something bigger, something that caliber anyway.
They were big, and there was several of them, and they flew right overhead. But like once the night came in, it was like there was something else emerged in that atmosphere at that location. I mean, during the day it really seemed kind of mundane and just nothing extraordinary about it other than it was some abandoned hunting cabin up in the woods,
Right.
up in that mountain. But at nighttime, it really took on a different vibe, and maybe some of that is psychological. I mean, I'm willing to admit that,
yeah.
the idea, we fear the night because we can't see in the night. But, I mean, it was more than that to me, though, because I've been in the dark before, but it was just something about that.
I'm always in the dark.
Well,
Well, I think the ITC session, definitely, to me, kind of backed that up because
Right.
it started off pretty light, and I'm sure everyone that's tuned in has got to the point with that they can tell the difference between the sound banks and
Yes.
an actual piece of instrumental transcommunication. And as the ITC started picking up and we were getting more direct responses, it was. I would have loved to have been able to take some ambient light measurements because it felt like that place was eating light more than it should.
Really?
Yeah.
You would expect a building like that, right, to be a little bit brighter than outside, even at night. But Bobby Mackey's, that's kind of a common theme with me, but Bobby Mackey's eats light like that. You go in there and you notice that your IR lights and your flashlight, your red flashlights and everything, they just don't go as far because the place just consumes it.
Wow.
Is
I
that
think that's what was going on there.
Is that like some creeping darkness kind of thing, or is it just using that energy to mass?
I think it's just pulling the energy out, and definitely, it makes sense that would be the case. That's how physics work.
Right,
So,
right.
I think it's generally just kind of pulling what energy it can because it really started getting cold too.
Yes. It did.
Now, mind you, we're 7,000 feet up, but
Yeah, that makes a bit of
take that with a grain of salt.
Right. Now, I will say that by the time we were done, the one thing that really stuck out to me in that whole ITC session was that sound that kept coming through of somebody going bang, bang.
Yeah.
Now, we never heard that anywhere else throughout the whole time we were doing ITC sessions. That was the only time, the only location using those same sound banks that sound ever came out, and it came out repeatedly. And I guess in my mind's eye, I was kind of picturing somebody making a gun with their fingers and going bang, like they were,
Bang, you get out of here.
yeah, like shooting us with their, with their bang, bang.
Oh.
That's, really
Right.
what I was getting from that.
Right.
And that sound never repeated anywhere else that we were, and this is hours and hours of ITC communication that we were doing. And you'll hear that in the recordings plus the live streams. That was all the same day. The only time that bang sound ever came out and the get out was at that cabin. Otherwise, that didn't surface again.
Well, so was there any connection with any of the supposed entities that had come around? Maybe like a child's entity?
No, it was a man's voice.
Oh, it was
though.
a man's voice.
It was
Okay.
like somebody going bang, bang. It wasn't like bing, bing.
Okay.
It was a man's voice.
Huh.
It was just like, what the hell is that? And then some of the weird feedback you were getting on those that was like really anomalous. You had said, I've never heard it do that before.
Yeah, there was more than one time that I've been listening to those sound banks, and when I run that particular app, I'm very, very careful to put my phone into airplane mode, turn off every single possible radio I can. I know for a fact it's not reaching out to the internet, doing geolocation or anything crazy like that. And so I've been using that app for several years now.
Right.
And I've every time I use it, and it's not been updated, right? I've got the version locked. I still get voices sometimes coming out of there that I know aren't part of the sound bank. And I don't just know that it's not part of the sound bank because it's not clicking. It's not that I don't remember it. It's that you can tell.
Yeah.
You can tell when it's not the sound bank, and you can tell when it is.
Right. Yeah, I had somebody. I was watching. Somebody on my Facebook Para Jason Para something.
Okay.
I forget his name. Anyhow, but he posted just the other day that he absolutely hates that app. And I think he was citing something about the sound bank itself and how he thinks that there's, pre-programmed things in there, like similar to what some of the accusations towards Steve Huff was.
Mm.
So he was putting it down pretty hard that he's tired of it and that he doesn't believe it anymore. So
Well, I mean, when it comes with all this stuff, by as I always say, by our standards, we're bringing potential evidence.
right.
We're bringing the things that we find anomalous. There's definitely a mathematical chance for every question that you ask that you're going to get a relevant answer. But I would ask people to consider what that mathematical chance actually is.
Right.
Of try and wrap your head around what that possibly could be. Because I typically don't. I typically don't really think that. I don't really think that it couldn't be something. There's if it's that one in whatever chance
Mm-hmm.
that you're just going to happen upon that coming out of the sound bank, then we need to be playing the lottery because we had a lot of that going on. I honestly, and the way it sounded, the way it came through,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds different. It was different. I'm leaning a little more towards stochastic resonance nowadays.
Uh-huh. And now we have 4 minutes, but when we come back
Wow.
after the break,
Already?
I want you to talk about stochastic resonance.
Stochastic resonance.
See, I almost screwed it up again. It's an intriguing idea, and I think that we definitely heard that going on at that location. I think that you and I both, and I don't have as much experience with the sound banks as you do, but when we heard the Brad anomalies coming through, that was a whole different sound than anything we'd heard for all the time that we were doing it.
Right.
And once it came through, and ladies and gentlemen, if you listen to that footage, you'll hear what we're talking about. If you listen carefully, and you'll hear what Dan's talking about with the strange presence of those anomalies as they came through. It had a whole different feel than the normal sound bank kind of stuff. I really think that we were onto something pretty incredible. I really do. I think that's, as you stated, I think that was very eloquently stated, that if you consider the chance for a sound bank sound that would come up and create the exact sounds that you need to answer a question you just asked, what are the mathematical possibilities with it? I mean, it's it's probably like pulling out folded clothes out of your dryer. I think,
Right.
I mean, those are the kind of odds you're working with the number of possibilities in that equation. So, I don't know. I just was really impressed, but I'd like for you to talk about some of the science behind what people are seeing, so that they can understand part of what was going on. And some of it I still need to understand too. I don't claim to be a pro. I've never, this is my really, honest to God, my very first hardcore solid investigation. I've done little mini investigations a bunch of times, but nothing structured, nothing with this level of involvement. And, it really blew me away. And honest to God, I'm hooked. I mean, I really am. I didn't.
You're hooked on ITC then?
I'm hooked on the idea of going out and looking for this evidence, whatever that means. It's not
Right.
necessarily ITC,
Okay.
but I think that that's a very powerful tool in the toolbox. And once, like Dan has said many times being on the show, once you combine all of these tools, and if you come up with evidence that seems to be supported by all these tools, then you've got something pretty special. And I really am interested in doing a lot more of this. So we'll get into a lot more of this on the other side of the break, ladies and gentlemen, but we're going to be heading to break in about a minute now. Of the whole investigation, Dan, quickly, what to you was the most powerful part of it?
To me, the woman that we heard come through that was in pain.
Yes.
I think hearing that,
Wow.
and that's another thing that I had not heard on that sound bank before.
Yep.
And it was definitely, it was gut wrenching, and
It was.
to feel that pain. You know, they're stuck in it, and I couldn't imagine that.
Right. No, I agree. And ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get into more of this. Dan's going to be showing us some of the things, including his Geiger counter. He has a chart of what we experienced up there, and he's going to talk about the relevance of those anomalies with potentially spirit portals. So we're going to get into a lot more of this. We got a long ways to go yet tonight, but it's already flying by. So if you got questions, make sure you put them in the chat for Don to check out, or call in if you'd like. All right, guys, we'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away for more of the portal. ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, joined by Mr. Don Longbeard and our special guest tonight, Mr. Dan Pruitt, who is joining us from the secret paranormal lair somewhere in the wilds of Idaho. We're not sure exactly where, the undisclosed location and all, but
The Dan Cave.
the Dan Cave.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, this is actually where I do most of my day job, so I think we can almost consider it a prison.
Those are haunted too.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
Yep, absolutely.
Me.
Yeah. So before the break, ladies and gentlemen, again, if you're not familiar with our Coloma investigation, you can check it out. It's on YouTube, youtube.com/paranormal portal. You can watch several videos in the investigations playlist having to do with Dan and I's experience up in Coloma, Montana, which is a ghost town on the top of a mountain in Montana. It was a mining community that for some reason just kind of went defunct, and a lot of people say it has to do with World War One having started and pulling a lot of the resources and people away. And I don't know, but it was a great experience. Dan and I went up there for 2 days in August, had a great time, phenomenal experiences. I'm still reeling about all of that, but before the break, Dan, we talked a little bit about the science behind what we were doing, and if you can explain to people listening about the portal and what is the explanation for how it works or why it works or what it's doing.
Right. So the device that we were using was a copy of what Steve Huff had published a couple years ago. I'm sure you can probably still find the site with all the specs and everything, but he had put together what he had considered a comparable kind of cheaper alternative to those $2,000 things he was selling. So I had put it together to kind of played with the reverb a little bit more than he had. But the way this works is you take an audio input, it runs it through a noise gate, which is just a way of tuning backgrounds, certain frequencies out of an audio signal. So it runs through the noise gate and then runs through a reverb pedal and then out to some sort of speaker. But the idea with the reverb is to increase the chance of stochastic resonance. And stochastic resonance is a phenomenon that happens when there's an audio signal that's usually too weak to be detected by a sensor. It gets the help that it needs to actually be picked up from random generated white noise. That can be voices, like it is with the app that we were using. It can be through the radio, like with an SB7. But really, I've had what I'm pretty sure stochastic resonance EVPs come through with the sound of a refrigerator motor, right? Mm-hmm. Gave it just the white noise that it needed, and it hitched a ride on one of those frequencies, and then all of a sudden we could hear it. Mm-hmm. So stochastic resonance is it's an actual phenomenon. This is not one of those paranormal theories. This is something that happens in nature, and we believe that one of the possibilities for EVP, which is really EVP and instrumental transcommunication are pretty much right along with each other when it comes to audio. There's some visual ITC that you can get into, but I won't digress on that. So again, we're trying to amplify what we think is already there. The other theory that we kind of go with is that EVP is EMF emerging into the audio spectrum. Emerging from where, we're not sure. Possibly some type of Einstein-Rosen bridge or portal or some sort of wormhole, something like that. Later on, I'll talk about kind of what we do to try and support that theory, or at least gather data to rule it in or out. But stochastic resonance, I think, is typically what you're going to find with this kind of application. And then on top of that, when we were getting the voices, the way they were muted and almost sounded tinny like on an old telephone line, to me that just kind of further underlines the fact that that signal is just catching a ride on something bigger so that it can resonate and make some kind of noise.
Yeah, and we got so many different sounds and variations of noise that it was just incredible. I'm going to use that word a lot tonight, but it's just reliving this experience. Now, if I had it to do over again, we probably would have done wrap ups on the spot after each one of those experiences. But
Right.
this was kind of a rookie run for me as far as how to share that experience with all of you guys out there that wanted to hopefully wanted to take part in it. And thank you to all of you who did. I've since created the videos, and they're posted on our YouTube channel with the idea that you guys can help us investigate the footage. And many of you have written back and let us know where things are in there, and that'll be on a forthcoming video where I'm going to hopefully compile all those things into another video of the results that you guys have found. And some really interesting things happened. Including something happening in the background of a physical nature that I caught yesterday when I was looking through the footage of the town investigation. And I'm not going to go into real detail about that tonight, but I will present it in a better video format so you guys can see what I'm seeing. And but I will say it looks like something is standing up on a rise behind us and ducks down when I'm rotating around, panning the camera. Something very clearly is up there on this rise, and as I'm turning around facing that direction, it ducks down. So
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was what it was. I'm not making any absolute claims. I will say that this area is noted for its Sasquatch activity. Duke had mentioned to me that right after we were up there, apparently a bear researcher was up in the area and had a Sasquatch sighting. Like a biologist was up there and had a Sasquatch sighting up in the Coloma ghost town area. So could it be? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not making any solid claims, but there's something on the ridge up above that seems to duck down when I'm panning around, and it's suspect anyway. I'll let the viewers come to their own conclusion about it. I certainly can't be any more solid than that I just see something happening, something's moving, and I don't know what it is, because I know you and I were the only ones up there.
Yes, absolutely.
We were all alone up on that hill, and I guess
Only humans anyway.
right. Now another sound that kind of kept showing up for us, which I found was really interesting, was the music.
Yeah, the music is another thing. There's one sound bank on that app that has snippets of commercials, and we weren't using that sound bank. That would be the only one that could possibly explain that. But then again, with this app, the words, the sounds that are coming out of it, they've been clipped out of whole words, so they're either syllables or partial words. So the only way you would get the word "of" would be if it was, someone had cut the word shovel in half, and you had "of" just because of the word shovel. That'd be the only way you could get whole words. And then particularly one of the sound banks we were running with most of the time plays them in reverse on top of that.
Right.
So when you actually get, a string of 4 or 5 words that are clearly some type of communication, gets a little bit more difficult to just dismiss that.
Right. Yeah. And I agree. I mean, when we got the music, we got the suggestive moaning every once in a while.
Yes.
Suggestive moaning?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yes.
I miss so much.
Yeah.
It was almost like a "I'll have what she's having" type moment.
Wow.
It was pretty intense. Yeah.
Yeah, it was almost like this, and I don't know if this is offensive or not to say, but it was almost like this orgasmic moan. And
It's exactly what it was.
yeah. And
If
I know
Brent's just
that
going to bring it
sound.
right, if Brent's going to just bring it into the light, we might as well, right? There you go.
I'm no expert. I've just heard. That's what it sounds like. No, I'm just kidding.
That's the way I like my nature to sound.
But it was really intense. I mean, that shouldn't have been on there either, but it was. And
Nope.
the crying woman, and the pleas for help that came through as well. Now, those were all things that stuck out to me as, and God, they just pull on your heartstrings so hard. And I can't imagine what that feels like to be in that state. Like, that's what I assume is their reality, is they're in that state. And for how long?
Right.
You know? So I don't know. I think for one of the things that would be cool is, and I think Diane in our chat said that she's a psychic, and she said that she was working on helping some of those spirits transition. And whether that helps or not, I don't know. But at least it's doing something, because it really almost hurt to hear those sounds come through, and to just feel so absolutely powerless to do anything about it.
Yeah. And it kind of like that while we were up there, I played an EVP for Brent that I had got from I had bought a Panasonic DR60 a couple years ago, just to experiment with. And that one's that's the granddaddy of all the of all the voice recorders, and allegedly always got EVP, and really that thing didn't disappoint. From day one, when I started playing that, I put it in my rental car. I was working in Houston, and I put it in my rental car, and this thing only records. It's audio triggered, so it won't record unless it's picking up a level of audio that trips it to start recording. And so when I let this thing, just left it in the car all day. Figured it'd run out of batteries or something. It didn't run out of batteries. It still had a few at the end of the day, a little bit at the end of the day. But when I played it back, it was just a couple minutes into. I remind you, this is in a locked, parked rental car in a parking structure at I can't say where, but a place, an
It was very secure.
oil company in Texas, one of their facilities. So when I came back out and I listened to this after work, there was just this terrible madness screaming. Just screaming. And then at one point, clear as day, you can hear it say, "Jesus Christ, save me."
Really?
Yeah.
And I played that for Brent, and I watched the goosebumps on his arm like they come on mine every time I hear it.
Yeah.
So any time to hear that kind of stuff in EVP or ITC, it does. It pulls on your heartstrings a little bit, and I don't see how it couldn't.
Right. Yeah. But it was, I imagine as much tragedy as had happened in the history of that town. It doesn't surprise me, I guess, that there would be, so much pain and suffering, and maybe they're just moments that echo through time, and we just happen to record it. I would love to think that it's that instead of some kind of, person that's stuck in this painful place. But my God, it's really tough. I mean, that's the hard part of the whole situation, I guess. But I think we found a lot of pretty amazing stuff throughout our time up there. You had also brought along the Geiger counter. And if you could please explain what the purpose of that was, and what we were hoping to capture.
Yeah, you bet. There's two environmental readings that are going to be kind of your bread and butter if you're trying to correlate physical activity with paranormal activity, and by physical I mean physics, in the physical world. One of the things that you're going to want, and is pretty generally visible on any investigation, is EMF. So I carry a logging EMF meter so that I don't have to keep staring at it. I turn it on, I put it in a pocket, and I go on about my business. It logs what it's going to log. I'm not going to sit there and watch it, waiting for it to spike and try and, who knows, chase some kind of anomalous thing. I'm going to let everything log. I'm going to collect as much data as I can. And then I'm going to use my body and my personal experiences to find the paranormal activity, mark down the time, and hopefully the environmental readings correspond with it. So one of the things that I started carrying around a couple years ago was a Geiger counter. And it's not for the reasons that you'd think. Not that I'm going to Pripyat or Chernobyl and trying to do investigations. I'm not necessarily worried. I travel so much on an airplane. I'm not really worried about more radiation exposure. But what I'm looking for is bursts of radiation,
Right.
and the bursting type reading, because in theory, and you can read this for yourself if you wanted to read, some of Einstein's papers. When a wormhole, or what we perceive to be a portal, opens up, physically there should be a giant burst of gamma radiation.
Hmm.
Um, so that's why I carry around a Geiger counter. Is hopefully, one of these days I'm going to correlate some activity happening really close to that. Now, I don't know. We had some pretty interesting things happen up there on the mountain that, by radiation standards, shouldn't have happened, or I've only had happen when I'm 30,000 feet in the air. So, we'll see what we've got there. I'm happy to share the graph here.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd love for people to see what you cataloged in that experience, because it's so far off of the norm.
Yeah, so I've got so I took the output of the data and I dropped it into Excel and fired up a pivot chart here. So this Geiger counter measures and counts per minute, as opposed to millirads per hour, or sieverts, or anything like that. So there's a conversion, but generally, and I think you can kind of see on this graph, between 20 and 25 is generally where you're going to find ambient radiation now. That's going to, depending on the time of day, depending on what's going on with the sun, that could be up and down. You get it around a smoke detector, it's going to go up a little bit because there's a small amount of radium in there. Not radium, there's some other type of radioactive isotope in there. Anyway, so to get spikes above 30, above 35, really, you wouldn't normally expect that. If you're around a lot of granite, when we saw there was plenty of granite in the area, we were getting slightly elevated readings. But this particular spike right here, this was a 62, and it was a sharp enough increase compared to what it was reading, that it actually caused the Geiger counter to start alarming.
Yeah.
And a couple people turned around and were looking, because we all heard it, and I'm like, holy crap, that's my Geiger counter. Why is it? I don't really like that it's peaking right now,
Yeah.
or that it's jumped up that much. So we were all moving around. We didn't really stop and investigate. And then it wasn't too much longer after that. We can see a few more of these spikes.
Hmm.
43 is getting pretty up there. I think the most 43, anything 40 to 60, I usually see once you hit about 15, 20,000 feet in the air. That's when you start picking up more of that cosmic radiation at that altitude.
Oh.
So there's really no really good reason why we would see a spike like that.
Now,
Could be some kind of solar flare. I don't
right.
know. It would have been a little more sustained, I would think, if it was.
Now I have to ask you, the where that big 60 plus spike is, that was right at those big stones that look like a megalith, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so the other spikes after that were as we moved a little bit away from that area. So would that, by virtue of not being near that potential epicenter of where a portal would open, would that maybe account for the lesser spike?
Yeah, and being around that granite with the that had I mean, we saw with the thermal camera, it was retaining a lot of just thermal heat
Right.
uh, well into the night. But I wouldn't expect a spike, right? Because if those boulders have been getting pummeled with, the sun or whatever, insert radioactive business here for thousands and thousands and millions of years or whatever, then I would expect some kind of sustained reading, right? Or at least a
Right.
little bit closer. I wouldn't expect to find a spike like that,
Good.
that would be caused of something that's just ambiently in the environment like that.
Yeah, that's really incredible. So that was our experience with the Geiger counter, ladies and gentlemen, and to give you a little idea of what we were looking for, or what Dan was looking for by carrying that around. Now, we noticed that other than up at that location, it didn't go really hardcore up after being away from that megalithic structure, though, right?
No,
Yeah.
it didn't go up. There were a few other spikes here and there, but again, anything north of 45 really shouldn't be happening. And the documentation that comes with the Geiger counter um, says if it alarms or it sustains at 50 for a few seconds, then you should probably leave the area.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And we were at 60. Yeah, that was,
Now, I mean, for that kind of spike, as quick as that was, I
yeah.
mean, you would need that kind of spike 24 hours a day for 7 or 8 years to maybe increase your cancer chance by 10%.
Sure. No, I hear you. I mean, I
Very
didn't think
minimal.
that we were going to glow after that, but I think it's just it's strangely unexpected. I guess I wasn't thinking we'd see anything from that, and when that alarmed, I think we all got kind of taken by surprise. And of course, there was I think Michael was also with us when that happened, which is one of Duke's investigators, and that was on Friday when we were standing up there checking out those stones, which, for lack of a better term, look like a megalithic structure. And I can't say that they were.
Right.
It could have just been some kind of really unusual glacial dump. But some of those stones are they got to be several tons, and they're jutting out of the ground like they were, like placed there.
Hmm.
And it was very peculiar, very odd. And ladies and gentlemen, if you watch the episode from Friday night when we streamed it live, that was basically when we got there. We were meeting everybody, and Dan and I were getting a lay of the land. That we went up there and looked at that, and that's when, of course, that spike happened. I don't know if it's on the recording or not. Actually, I think it might be. You might be able to hear that
It,
alarm going
it,
off. Was it on
it,
there?
it, it could be.
Yeah, because we were pretty close together through most of that. And it wasn't that long after that we saw that anomalous light off in the distance. Well, actually, you guys saw it. I was looking somewhere else. I didn't actually see that light anomaly that we ended up chasing over there. But
Oh, no, you were running the thermal.
yeah, that's right. And yeah, that's right. Yep. But really, all of those things together just seemed to really validate that was a very active location.
Right.
A lot of,
Yeah, definitely. I've never had that thing alarm on the ground. I've had an alarm when I'm going up, when I'm flying, but never on the ground.
Wow.
I did not expect that.
wow.
Hey Dan, we've got a couple questions. The first question in the
We got about 3 minutes
well,
before the break.
This is we'll take this to the break. One question was, how long have you been doing paranormal investigation?
I've been doing paranormal investigation for 8, 9 years now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're pretty familiar with a lot of the equipment. I think it was funny though because you said EMF emissions, not an EMF field.
Oh, did I?
No. You said it right as opposed to EMF field because the F stands for field. So,
Right.
I have another question from Duck Sauce. Duck Sauce says, "Is it possible that portals are a symptom of mental or emotional phenomena? Put another way, portals after effects rather than starting points." Like,
Yeah, potentially. I guess if you're looking at, if you're looking at the work that they're doing at the LHC in CERN, you would probably find very, very brief experiments where they're able to collide particles together and briefly create that kind of environment that it would be an after effect. But albeit for milliseconds. I mean, if we can conceive of something lower than milliseconds, it's probably more accurate.
Wow. Very wild. That is amazing.
So it'd be very brief, but yes,
right.
but possible.
Would you term some of them psychosomatic?
Potentially. I mean, there's nothing saying that my unknown psi abilities are manipulating the equipment one way or the other. After all, most of the components are, unshielded. We don't know what we can do with our mind. It could be. potentially. And then you guys are going to find most of the time, if there's a plausible physical possibility, then I'm generally going to say yes, that's possible. How probable is it? I don't know, but a lot of things are possible.
Excellent, excellent. And that took us to a break.
It really did. We got all the way to the hour break, and we got a lot more to cover. So don't go away, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back. And, of course, in the second hour, we're going to do a giveaway.
Oh, so you didn't do it last night?
No.
Dang,
it's
okay.
happening tonight.
It's happening.
I wouldn't let you miss that,
It's
Don.
happening, sweetheart.
Hey. Not on camera, Don.
On camera.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to head to our break. Don't go away. We'll be back with more of Dan Pruitt and the Paranormal Portal and a peek behind the curtain of the Coloma investigation. Hope you guys are enjoying this. And remember, the phones are open. If you want to call in and ask questions, by all means, do so. We'll be here waiting for you. We'll be right back.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across my heart. Raging anger boils inside me as their lies keep falling apart. I am finished with my silence. I am not a stupid boy. No more breaking me with kindness. Just you dance upon my joy. Leading me with empty promise. You're just another fucking mess. Take another slice of my sanity. Just make sure that you're well fed.
I can't see you, Mommy. Where are you? I've never sensed anything like it. Carol Ann is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force. It is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are of fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hour number 2 is now underway here on the Paranormal Portal. I hope you're enjoying the ride. I know I'm sure enjoying it. Of course, Don is here, and our special guest tonight is Mr. Dan Pruitt, who is my lead investigator on the Coloma trip when we went over to Coloma, Montana, near Missoula, and investigated the ghost town. So welcome back, Dan.
Hey, thanks.
Hey, good deal. So we are back at it. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to call in or you got a question for Dan, anything you want to ask about his paranormal investigating or what happened at Coloma, by all means, call in. The number is 720-923-0500. And we'll be watching the lines closely. But if you also have a question, don't want to be on the radio, it kind of freaks you out, you can always type it in chat. Just make sure Don knows or one of our moderators see it, and we'll be sure to ask it to Dan. But either way, we are back underway here, and if you haven't seen the videos that we're referencing, they are posted on our YouTube channel. There's four total videos. Is that right, Don?
Yes.
Yeah, 4 total. So 2 of them were streamed live. We were
Right.
able to stream live. The first one happened on a Friday night. Both of those, oddly enough, actually turned out pretty good considering we were on top of a mountain way out in the middle of nowhere, nowhere near civilization for the most part. And I still had like 2 bars up there on top of the mountain in most places. But every once in a while, as you're watching those live streams, they were honestly just stabs in the dark. I was trying to do it, didn't know if it'd work or not, but it did work for the most part. But there are some spots in there where I lost signal, but I really think YouTube's app did a good job because it didn't. I mean, it kind of chops them out automatically, and so you really don't notice it other than this jumpy stuff. So, but there are two other videos that were recorded. And I've since released those for your viewing pleasure as well. And the sound quality on the recorded ones and the visual quality are obviously much better. But I think if you watch all 4 of those, you're going to be hopefully pretty impressed with what we accomplished up there. This was really a maiden voyage for us to just see if this would work, see if we could make it happen. It did, and it turned out to be, just such an incredible experience. And we've gotten a lot of feedback from you guys, and thank you all who've either been investigating those recorded shows and the live shows for that matter, and see if you're hearing anything, giving us timestamps and stuff. We will be putting together a compilation of those to hopefully showcase what you guys have found as well. Again, it's going to be a battle of time for me to get the opportunity to do it, but I also want to make sure a lot of people have had the opportunity to listen to it and listen to hear if they're finding any anomalies that we didn't. You got to listen carefully. I would recommend using headphones, because, just through speakers, you're going to miss a lot. And I think some of it is very subtle. Like at one point, and I don't remember what the question was, Dan. We asked, are you hungry or something like that? And it said something. And I messaged you about it, that it said it on the ITC equipment. And then it said it in like regular, like EVP. into the
Right.
microphone, and then I said it, repeating it because I heard it from the equipment. So in between those, and I can't remember what the word was. Do you remember what that was?
I'm not remembering off the top of my head now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look because, but it's stuff like that, ladies and gentlemen, that it really takes a pretty careful review of those files and those videos because, any real investigation is probably 10% on site and 90% reviewing. Would you agree with that, Dan?
Yeah, definitely. You're depending on how much equipment you want to take and how much time you want to spend reviewing. Yeah, you can run into a lot. I've walked away from investigations with several hundred gigs
Oh,
of data to go over. I mean, most of that's 4K video takes up quite a bit, but
sure.
yeah, still no stranger to 30, 40 gigs of audio.
So during that time we were up there, of course, you took a lot of full spectrum pictures, but none of those seemed to show anything anomalous that you were able to find, right?
No, and I'm happy to just kind of share it out and let's see here. I'm just here in my OneDrive.
Sure.
So I think I'll be able to get past these because I think most of these are
Just power up anomalies.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Oh, that's one of the
So
captains.
yeah,
Okay.
couldn't quite this I'm not sure what was up with that, but I'm not sure that it's something too.
Right.
But yeah, the full spectrum. What I loved about the full spectrum out in the woods like this is you see more color than, I mean, you go out there and you're used to seeing color if you live, in the suburbs or city like I do. You're not used to seeing that kind of color. So when you do see it through full spectrum, it's and this is that rock structure
Yeah.
back here that we were talking about. A couple of the guys that were with us, they were great to investigate with.
Yeah, they were. I mean, the whole crew, and you kind of nailed it when you said, "Now look at that. Why is it lighter in front of that cabin?"
It's because the infrared light that I was using at that distance, and this goes back to when I talk about using the right equipment for the right space.
Okay.
This is a good example of this light not necessarily being the right equipment for a big open space like this because it's just making that big circle. It's just making a big spot.
Right.
So a little bit of an exercise in futility to try and light up that much with infrared. Now getting inside one of the buildings, that's a little bit different.
Right.
And you can see where I grazed the infrared grazed the tip of these saplings here, but still obviously not enough to do anything.
Sure. Yeah, those are really incredible, though. I mean, it gives you an idea of the scope of the territory we were covering. Now, full spectrum, again, to review for people that may not know a lot about the paranormal researching, why would full spectrum be benevolent to investigations?
Well, so when you're, everything that we can see, it revolves around the electromagnetic spectrum. And the electromagnetic spectrum is going to be, from infrared to ultraviolet, and we see, we can actually see a specific, kind of range in that spectrum. So what we can't see, we want to try and get exposed. We want to try and get pictures of somehow, some kind of digital representation. So cameras, especially most consumer cameras, will have an infrared filter that sits on inside the camera, and in order to see what's going on in all the spectrum of light that sensor can capture, we want to try and use something without that filter so we can see everything. We want more data, not less.
Oh, okay.
The other thing you'll notice is I generally take pictures in threes when I'm on investigations, just because storage is cheap when you're talking about SD cards, and um, if you find something anomalous, you're going to probably want something not anomalous that you can compare it against. So I usually take them in threes, maybe a few more if I'm feeling like something's weird.
Oh, okay. Now these are those rocks again, or is this a different rock pile?
These are some. No, these are these are close to that rock formation.
Okay, and that's what we saw, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't that just that one oddity, but there seem to be all these other oddities where these stones are just standing on end, and you wouldn't expect to see that. It's like they're almost placed that way.
Now, when I was in McCall a few weeks ago, went horseback riding out across one of the mountains with my family, and we were seeing granite like this deposited on top of hills. So I'm thinking that was more of a glacial thing, but still weird that it ended up like that.
Yeah, it is. But I guess as thick and as much mass as they have, wherever they land is probably how it's going to stay. Well, that's
Yeah, and there
interesting.
was someone's dog. I forget the gentleman's
Oh,
name, but
that's
it was
Xena.
great to have the dog out there.
Yeah, Xena.
Xena, that's right.
Yep, it was
Xena
Xena.
was awesome.
She was cool, and it was nice to
She
have the
wanted,
dog too, because they have such so many more attuned senses, not only for paranormal but for so many other things as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, what is that?
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure, but I'm gonna have to play around with that one a little bit because
Yeah, it would be neat to raise the contrast on it and see what.
coffee cup or something,
Oh, is that from the cabin? Maybe.
maybe.
Are we in that neighborhood?
Yeah, here we
Yep,
are.
yep.
This is getting into the
That's in
cabin
the
here.
hunting lodge. Yeah, that's the back room there, and mostly people didn't get to see these. It's funny that there's nothing showing up though.
Okay, so this is the next day. Yeah, this was when we got into that cabin during the night.
Right.
So then when we jump into the next day, this was where it was just you and I. This is right before we started that ITC session. And
Oh.
so I was just capturing some background.
Uh-huh. Gotcha.
And of course, as I'm going through here, I'm just double checking.
Sure.
Is that yeah, there seemed to be just a feeling right around in here. And it wasn't too far from here where we were getting the that as you said, suggestive moaning.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And so this was kind of going back up towards, there were some businesses that were up here on the hill, and then kind of going back up behind these trees and up with that rock structure was up here on the hill.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the old rig.
There it is. Yep. Very cool. Got to be a lot less pictures of me around there, doesn't there? Oh, that's really cool.
Hey, now, if there was like a shadow man or some full-bodied apparition standing behind you, you wouldn't care about being in the pictures.
I'd still crop me out of it if I could. That's my least favorite part of the investigations, is to be on the film.
Now, where is this? Is that the old cabin?
That's the old
Yeah,
cabin.
that's inside the old cabin.
Okay.
That is.
And so I mean, there's everything here, and you look at the newspapers and everything. They're from the '90s. I mean, this place was just left.
Yeah, it hasn't been touched since then. Yep.
I mean, maybe just passersby like us, but
Right. Well, you can tell on
yeah.
that one chair something was scratching in there to get at that stuffing. So.
Somebody asked when you guys were live streaming this the month ago. They asked what that was underneath the.
The furnace?
Yeah, the furnace.
That was the bottom of it was just rusted out.
So it had just fallen
just
out.
collapsed.
So it was like a piece of wood, charred wood, and stuff underneath it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, the whole belly of that thing was just rusted out.
Yeah, it was just gone.
Yeah, I mean, and during the day, there was just nothing, no big deal in here.
Right.
But as it started getting darker,
It got
it
evil.
was a whole other ball of wax.
It got pretty evil at that point for sure.
Oh, this one I was just taking. Sometimes I'll just like take shots behind me. Just one of these days, if there's a window behind me, I think one of these days maybe I'll catch some face looking at me.
Oh yeah. Just very, very creepy. There's that chair, and that chair's just shredded. Like something got in there and was going after whatever. Maybe there was some mice living in there or something, but I don't know. Whatever got into it. Now go back one frame again. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm just seeing the light change there.
This here, I don't know if there was one of us behind.
That's
but
probably the chair, probably because of the light maybe was coming in that side window.
Could
and
be.
It's creating a shadow right here from
there
the chair.
it is. Yeah, coming in that way. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's just the chair, yeah.
Yep. And that's why we review this stuff, ladies and gentlemen, is to find out, what we're seeing and to examine it. Does that have kind of a fisheye to it or something?
Oh, yeah. It's got a big fisheye lens on it.
No, that's just the back of your head.
Well, the back of my head is always big and round, but so is my belly.
There's that truck. Oh man, I love that truck. That truck got us everywhere we needed to go.
Yeah, and there was. I mean, that's the valley back there by the hunting shack, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that was no easy logging road to get up, but that thing was a champ.
Well, I think it was more of a stream bed than a logging road, to be honest with you, for melt off, because it was just all ruts and rocks. But it worked as a road, kind of. But as it got dark up there, ladies and gentlemen, this whole place became something else. It really did.
And that was what it was like looking into the place.
Yeah, and this is still when it was relatively light outside, or was this after? When it got...
This was 8:30. It was starting to get dark, and I mean, and I had the IR light on, so you can just totally see how the place just eats light.
Oh no, that's a great point. Yeah, because you had that IR boost on it, so that hot
and
spot
I mean, there's
that we observed
here, two on this side on this wall, big thing open here, and the place just sucked up every last bit of light we put in there.
Yeah, well, that's a great example of that, brother. That's perfect, because that should be illuminated by the IR.
Yeah. Should be. It should be lit up like Christmas, because that's a pretty powerful light too.
Was that my Alexa going off? Isn't it unplugged? No, but it shouldn't be going off. Nobody's out there talking to it. We got some activity here. That is strange.
So this is after we got back over to the town center, if you will. And while we were just having that last session, it was starting to get so cold.
Don's telling Alexa to turn off. He's freaked out.
Interesting.
You can just unplug it, Don.
I just hit the mute button.
Oh.
I don't know who she's talking to.
Yeah, she shouldn't be talking to anybody. It doesn't just talk to itself. It never has.
Try and keep your eye right in here.
Oh yeah, there's something changed there, didn't it?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to play with this one, because it's not perfectly round, so I'm not thinking that's a dust orb. It's got some kind of bulbous shape to it. I'm gonna have to play around with that one.
Oh yeah, yep. That's crazy.
And like maybe that's it there, and then oh yeah, that's moving.
Yeah, it is. That has motion to it. Wow.
Yeah.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. You're seeing it first as right with us. We haven't seen these before either. Dan hasn't had a chance to go through them, so we're going
kind of materializing a little bit right there. Of course, I'm going to play with the contrast and kind of double check myself here, but that definitely looks like it's moving.
It does.
Materializing here and then moving.
Yep. Wow. That's really cool.
And, yeah, there's a third one.
Oh.
And that's why we take pictures in threes, peoples. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, that's definite
Now
motion.
if I play it in sequential here,
Yeah, it's totally drifting to the right. That's cool. There you have it,
yeah,
ladies and gentlemen.
let's
We
do
caught an
that time.
anomalous orb, maybe.
One, two. Oh, that's moving for
Yeah.
sure.
Wow, that's intense. Now
And that
it's
was the last shot. And of course, this is after I lit up that big 360 IR light, so there's a little more to work with
right.
there. Let's see. Let's go back because there are. Sorry, Dave, I'm not just trying to hijack your show here.
No, this is why
This
you're
is
here.
why you're here.
Yeah. This is you doing your job.
See, let's go back here because I put the FLIR photos on here.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Well, you can see how everything just starts hanging on to the heat when it starts getting dark. There we go. Now it's coming up a little bit better. I have to let them load. They're pretty rich pictures.
Yeah, they are.
And I'm
Wow.
pulling them offline.
That was a really slick deal. It plugged right into that tablet, and it really. What is the effective range on this? I mean, for really pulling. There's a hot spot there, but is that a person or a rock or what? In the middle.
Well, whatever. And it's in the same spot, it looks like.
Yeah.
Because it's just you that moves, but there's definitely something warmer here.
Wow. It kind of changes though, doesn't it? I mean, the shape of it. So that appears to be a motion too, and then another one appears right there.
Yeah.
Well, that's bizarre.
Yeah, it's reflecting a lot of heat, whatever it is.
And then, but the secondary one just jumps into a frame there on the third exposure of the three. Wow. Well, that is really strange.
Wait a second. Is it me or does it kind of look like that, when I'm using sarcastic air quotes, that turns around and looks at you?
Right. That's
So like
strange.
it turns toward you.
Profile and then
like
turning.
something else checking you out too. I don't know what it is, but could be anomalous, could be not.
Right, but I mean, there's no heat signature from that external one until that last frame. So,
Right.
I mean, it's all cold or matching the background until this frame and it appears. God, it makes me wish I would have took more of those. Is this from when I was taking the pictures?
Oh yeah, you're the only one that used this, so
Yeah.
these were all you.
I did good.
You did.
Damn, I'm good, Dan. Oh, there's
Go
the
back.
stones. Look at the rocks just radiating that heat.
Give this just a second to see if it's going to load more, if it's just out of focus. I think it's just out of focus. Yeah, here's some of those. I mean, look at the way they hold on to heat. I mean, not surprising, but crazy.
It is, yeah.
You could feel it when you were on them. You could feel the heat, so it makes sense that with the thermal cam you could see it.
Yeah.
That bright. Well, this looks like grave markers.
It really does. That's what really jumped out to me.
And one of the who was it that went up and studied it, and they were telling us that as far as they could tell, these were man-made fractures with some very primitive tools. One of the Bigfoot guys was saying that.
I think it might have been Kevin that said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Huh.
But then, yeah, compared to the to the needles, look at how the tree's core stays warm. It's almost like it has a soul.
Right. Wow, that's really pretty, isn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, you're going through these with us. These are the first time we've reviewed these, so you're here for this part of the investigation. If you see something, let us know that we're not seeing. If you're seeing something on these images as they're brought on screen, let us know.
And I have these on a OneDrive, so if anyone wants to download them, it's a read-only folder. So if people want to jump on and download them and kind of double check us on some of this stuff, there's audio, and I'm going to be putting more video and stuff up there.
Yeah, very cool.
or people that want to just get on and kind of, have some evidence or some, data to go over if you want to kind of just work on your skills, your EVP review skills, your audio visual review, then feel free to ping me. I'll get you the link or have these guys share it.
Yeah, we can share this link with you guys, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to go through this material as well. What is no?
Don't encourage that behavior, Brent.
What? Oh, yeah. Sorry. But yeah, it looked like something had just popped up, but I guess as you're going through these frames, there's nothing really changing other than the motion of me probably as I'm taking those shots.
Yeah.
Oh, we're heading to our last break. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. We'll continue to go through all of this incredible evidence with you here on the Paranormal Portal. Don't go away. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Paranormal Portal. We're into our last half hour. Oh my God, can you believe it? The time has absolutely flown, but it's been an amazing conversation with both Don and Mr. Dan Pruitt, who is joining us today. Welcome to the show, brother.
Heyo.
Welcome back
Thanks
from
for having
break.
me back.
Oh, yeah, dude. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and it's actually been far too long since you've been on, so I'm glad you're back again. And it's definitely on the agenda for us to do a lot more of this, you know, not only just doing shows, but getting out there and doing it for real, you know? That to me is
Energizing.
well, it's just invigorating, you know, because I love doing the show. I do. I do, you know, 7, 8, 9 shows a week, sometimes 10, depending on what we're doing with our podcasts and stuff. But this was just such a new experience for me, but it really was a great experience, I think, not only for myself, but for the viewers, to be right there as we were doing the investigation and being a part of it. And I have to tell you, honestly, if we hadn't have had that connection when we were up there in the dead of the dark, it was just like having them there, having the listeners there, I think really made me a lot more bold, you know, because if we had been just cut off and there was no connection to anything, it's just you and I up there, I think that would have freaked me out a whole lot more.
Yeah, I used to get that quite a bit because when I started really getting into paranormal investigation before, you know, I got with a group and kind of started working together with a team. I, you know, out and about for my day job, I would just investigate by myself. And so I had to really quickly get over that. And there's definitely, even when you're just recording it, you know, with your phone, you're going to feel a little bit more grounded.
Sure.
So when you have an audience there and people interacting, it's really good because it takes your mind out of overanalyzing everything and just kind of lets everyone be in the moment. I'm a big fan of having people on, but yeah, if we wouldn't have had that, it would have probably been a little more intimidating. But you get used to it.
Yeah, well, again, you remember how it did, you know, the cabin, of course, ate light, but I think once it really got dark up there, everything ate light up there. It was just like, you know, I only had a pocket flashlight, and you only had a little pocket flashlight too, right? Or did you have a bigger one?
No, I just have a small one on my
Yes.
my gear vest.
So it's like you get maybe 20 feet of illumination, and you might be able to see a few branches past that, but it still made it feel like the world was closing in. But the activity, I think, was really incredible. Let's talk a little bit about the Brad phenomena that we experienced up there. You and I both felt like that phenomena was very different from everything else we were hearing, you know, with the exception of like the moans and the crying and stuff that would come through. I think that all of those were great examples of actual really direct contact. And I think that we were getting contact through the sound banks too, but it was just like a whole nother level going on. What about that experience in those Brad moments made it really stand out for you?
What really made it stand out for me was the direct answering of questions, and more specifically, I think there was a point where I like to count out, you know, 1, 2, 3, and just kind of pick a sequence of numbers, and if you get, you know, a response that's the next number. Once again, what are the chances of that happening? Right. They're pretty far out there.
Right.
Even if it's fluke, they're still very mathematically. This is something that we need to appreciate. Right.
Right.
But when I was counting and having the voices come through and finish the numbers for me, finish the sequence. I mean, and I wasn't just doing 1, 2, 3. I was doing 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, it would come through, and I don't know if those were the actual numbers, but that to me was what really got my attention, and that's when the interaction with Brad really started happening, and like we'd said earlier, when you hear that session and you hear that voice from Brad, there's no mistaking that it's different from everything else. I honestly don't see how anyone can listen to that and say, that doesn't belong there. Like, I don't expect to hear that there. I think anyone, skeptic or not, would say that.
Right. Yeah. And what you and I had talked about, and we haven't quite shared on the show yet, was the idea that it seemed like he was speaking in the pauses. Like that was when he was breaking through, but those same sound bank stuff kept coming in, and it was like, it almost seemed like it was frustrating him, because the same message would come through like 2 or 3 times, or, on a few occasions, but it was like he seemed to be very aware of what was going on for us. And it was like he was timing what he was doing to aim for the pauses in the ITC sound bank.
Right.
Yeah, that to me was what really made it stand out, and the sound quality of it was entirely different too. Like, it was coming from a 1920s radio kind of sound was what really struck me. Everything else seemed to have real dynamic clarity, but those weird sounds that came through that seemed to be in between everything else really had a presence and sound quality all of their own. Like they were coming through old equipment or an old speaker, very, very treble, a lot of treble, no bass.
Yeah, I think if anyone that's been in this lovely digital world that we're in, and they've used their cell phone for making a phone call, that first time you get on an actual digital call, you're like, holy crap, I can hear everything. I can hear the inflection of your voice. Right. But then when you have to go back and get on a regular, even an older, rotary telephone, to me, that's exactly what it sounded like. It sounded like that voice was coming through an old rotary telephone line, because it had that quality to it. And it was just like, I can't reiterate enough how different it was from everything else coming out of that app.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. So I think that we are going to make that trip again. If Duke will have us back, we'll certainly come back. But what would you do differently next time, knowing what we know now? How would you change our approach?
I would probably try and keep track of everyone a little bit more. I think there was several EVP sessions we were running that, like I said, when I went to go look at how many hours of audio or video that I have, if I can't say I know where everyone is and I have their voice so that I can look at the signature when I'm looking at a spectrographic view of audio, if I can't say that I can account for everyone, then I can't really say that I can hang my hat on it being, suspect EVP, because I just there's not enough certainty for me, and by my own standards. Now I can go through and I can listen to it, and I might find something that I know is anomalous. I've been listening to EVPs for years. I know what they sound like, but is it something that I could then say, this is an EVP, I'm putting it forward as evidence? Well, no, I can't. I don't know where everyone is. I don't know where everyone was. Maybe next time, if we were to do something like that, definitely keep track of where people are, but then kind of just as part of the meet and greet, I think it would be easy to have people introduce themselves, say a few words, so that if they're going to be in, range of the audio, then I do have their voice, and if I do pick up something, I can compare the pitch and the rise and the fall, and see if it's a person or not.
Yes. Now, one thing I thought that was really cool is when we were in the hotel, we had received some EVPs from Mike Hetzel, MCAT, and you had shown me that spectral analysis on, and I found that so interesting in that they have such a different footprint in the audio spectrum based on that spectral analysis that you can actually, at a glance, even before you've heard it, probably identify if there's something anomalous going on. I really was blown away by that, and of course MCAT's EVPs were really solid when he got those from that cemetery where he was doing that. But I thought that was amazing.
Let's see here. Tell me if I started sharing out again. If I can figure out, I've got my laptop open. I usually have it closed, so I've got like a third monitor now, and I'm trying to figure out where everything is. Here we go. And I'm getting a visitor that must be going to bed. Good night, sweetheart. I love you.
Oh, that's sweet. Oh, good night.
She's been waiting for me so patiently. All
Oh,
right. So if you get into Audacity, and Audacity is one of those great free open source tools for audio analysis, you can do a lot of really cool stuff with it. I would urge you, if you're a paranormal investigator and you find yourself using Audacity a lot, contribute to the community somehow. Whether you're giving just a few dollars donation or whether you're actually contributing to the open source project, you can get in here and help these guys write documentation and do things like that. Because everyone that's building this code and maintaining it, they're not getting paid for it. So if you use it a lot, I urge you to become part of the community, support the community one way or the other. That's my programmer plug.
sure. No, that's great too, and you're absolutely right. I use Audacity all the time, and I probably should float them a little thank
I
you.
was just thinking the same thing. Hey, real quick, I just wanted to make sure that you did not do the drawing last night, right?
No, I did not do the
Because
drawing last
everybody
night.
wants us to do it. I have no idea what they're talking about. I was sure you did it last night.
Oh no.
Oh,
We
okay.
can we will
I
do
gotta
it,
quit
ladies and
pulling your
gentlemen.
legs. We'll get to it.
We'll get to it. Don't worry. We're gonna give away a fantastic shirt
Yep.
tonight. So don't worry. We haven't forgotten about you.
Gracious guys.
All right. Sorry, Dan. Continue, please.
Oh yeah, no problem. So here, if you get into Audacity, and I'm trying to remember exactly where that is, but there is somewhere where you tell it to always open up in spectrographic view. So then you can actually see. You're not just looking at the
The waveform.
at the waveform. You're actually looking at. Actually looking, enable spectral selection. Is that it, or is there another one? Sorry, folks. I did this once a couple years ago, and I've just been kind of rocking with it since. There is somewhere where you can set it to do it by default, but nonetheless, this is the spectrographic view. So when you're looking, I use spectrographic view because generally when you get an honest to God EVP, it's floating out here and it doesn't have a waveform and it doesn't have a rise and a fall.
Oh.
It's just kind of floating out there. And let's see if I can. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, that would be MCATs right there. Yeah.
Yeah, like here. And I think when we saw this before we played the file, and then when we went through, we heard the EVP, and it was like that. I don't know if I can zoom in a little bit here, but you can see how EVPs will typically be in some higher frequency, and they just kind of float along out there.
Oh.
And when you get some real clear EVPs, you'll see it a little bit better.
Wow.
Now, looking at it in that way, can you cue it from that certain spot and then play it, just like you do a
can.
waveform? Okay,
Yeah, you can grab it right here.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, you can't hear it's coming through my earbuds, but you can't hear it. But yeah,
Sure.
that's how you would do it. But spectrographic view, oh my gosh, absolutely great. If you have to analyze hours and hours of video, that's one way to do it. But again, if you're gonna do it, then I would urge you to if you're gonna be submitting your evidence, or you wanna you wanna try and be a little more paranormal investigative about it. Know where your people are. Know whose voice is what. Yeah.
Paranormal investigating. That's a new one, Dan. I like that. You're recruiting the vocabulary as you go. That's awesome. That's yeah.
Yeah, spectrographic view is a total win.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's beautiful. All right. I suppose we should probably do our drawing, right, Don?
Yeah, it looks like we're getting to that point.
We're gonna have a bunch of antsy people. I don't want to disappoint our viewers, so let's do that before we get too close to the end here, and then we'll get back into the Coloma.
All right.
All right, so
let's
we
see
got a
here.
whole bunch of people that wanted to be included, and they are now on the list.
And
Right?
yes, I have the list open here. And come on, where's my? Give me the. No. Why is it doing that?
I don't know.
There we go. Okay, now I've got the number programmed into the. Oh, I have to randomize the list.
You do.
Okay,
Randomize
the list. Randomize range. There we go. Boop. And then I have a random number generator provided by, of course, those people at the largest thing.
the largest
world.
alphabet group in the world.
Yeah,
Google.
let's just leave them alone.
All right.
All right, so 1, 2, 3, and we push, and it gives us the number 7. Who is number 7? 7 is Sharon Harper.
Sharon Harper.
Sharon
Congratulations. You are now the proud owner of a Paranormal Portal t-shirt. Please email us how to send this to you and what size. If you've got a color preference that we're able to accommodate, we will certainly do that, but we will put it in the mail to you as soon as possible. So Sharon Harper, thank you so much for playing.
Email address is paranormalportalradio@gmail.com.
Excellent. And thank you all for participating in that. It's just a great opportunity for us to be able to give back to you guys. We're doing it as fairly as we can. It's a random randomized list. It's double blind. Double blind. Randomize the list, and then we use a random number generator, and whatever number it spits out, that's the winner. So thank you so much for participating, everybody, and thank you so much for promoting and being a part of the Paranormal Portal family. We love you guys bunches. So back to Coloma, Dan. Let's see, where was I going with this? There was one other thing that I wanted to make sure we touched on tonight. But while I think of this, was there anything about that experience that you wanted to share since you're here? That I've been kind of directing the whole flow and without letting you say what you might be on your mind. So by all means, please.
God, no, I think Coloma is one of those. I'd really like to be able to find out more information. Specifically, I wish, I don't think it's going to be possible, but if there was a way to get into various, I don't even know if they would have been organized governmentally there, but getting into some records would be really nice to see if we can. The name Brad was so pervasive. It was so prevalent, and it was so consistent, and it not only that, it repeated itself, and it answered to the name, or it seemed to anyway. I really wish there was a way I could find out more about that. Now I do know that there have been some college departments out there doing various amount of excavation and looking for artifacts and things of that nature. So maybe this is a good opportunity for us to kind of extend the olive branch and see what they may have found history-wise, and maybe see where that goes. Yeah. Definitely would love to get back there, and I think you definitely found out that investigating outdoors is a whole other ball of wax than trying to do something indoors, because you don't have control over baselines. Does it really even make sense to take baselines all over the place? So investigating outside is one of those things that you kind of have to pick and choose, and having regular access to the place is going to be good. So going back every year, I think would be a good thing for us to do, because we can run the same experiments in the same locations and record the data, and I'd kind of treat it like a long-term paranormal case study. I think it'd be a great candidate for that.
Excellent. And what I found also interesting, Dan, and this was something that hasn't been included for our listeners before, but as you recall, when we were investigating the cemetery at the very end, an older couple with their grandchild came up, and that's about when we shut down. We'd been at it for a while there anyway, and it wasn't a whole lot of activity there, but I ended up talking to the gentleman that was there, and he, I asked him what happened in Coloma. Why did they just kind of go away? And he said, war happened. And he explained to us.
Oh, they wiped the town out when all the young guys moved.
Well, that and resources, gold got devalued, and metal was at a premium. People went off to war. Right. So it basically created the death throes of Coloma as a viable community. And I didn't know that. I hadn't heard any of that information from anywhere else. And there seems to be a big mystery about, Coloma in general. There's just not a lot of information out there. But when we were doing the ITC session at night down in Coloma town proper, we asked, what happened here? Why did the town die? And what we had come up was that people said, or the communication through the machine, the ITC equipment said war.
Yep.
And it repeated it like two more times. And that was actually pointed out by a listener that it answered us, a couple times. We didn't hear it at first, so it came back and said it again. And I thought that was a really incredible correlation to the fact that we had just learned that information, maybe a few hours prior. And then we were there, asked the same question to the spirit, whatever spirits may be present, and they gave us a corroborating answer. And again, now you start dealing with those mathematical probabilities or possibilities.
Right.
And what are the odds, and it's astronomical that would come out just at that time and it would repeat. It was like somebody wanted to make sure we had that answer, that it was war that
Right.
basically caused Coloma to die. So I thought that was, for me, that was one of the most incredible parts, was that we got that corroborating information. It really lends a lot of credibility to the sessions because there was an intelligence there with us. It was intelligent. And so many other questions as well. But that one to me really stuck out because to us, up to that point, it was a mystery until that old guy said it was because of world wars. There were just a lot of things had changed. So, and I forget, when did the town go defunct, Dan? Do you remember? Was it like 1910?
1928, I think.
1928.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
like World War One. Yeah.
That was after World War One.
Well, yeah, but that may be when Coloma actually died.
The decline started. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So it was a really incredible experience, and we're down to just under 4 minutes left. The night has flown by us as usual, but
It does.
yeah, Dan, can you let people know how to stay in touch with what you're doing in the paranormal?
Yeah, you bet. I work with Supernatural Inc. Out of Kansas City. So if you're familiar with Supernatural Inc. or Ghosts of Morgan City, you're familiar with my good friend KD Stafford. He's as far as I'm concerned, one of the titans of ITC. Builds his own equipment. Where we collaborate on a lot of stuff. We're really putting together some groundbreaking stuff and pushing the boundaries of what is considered normal in the paranormal. I think we're in the next few years we're going to come up on some really unprecedented experiments that we'll be making public. So you can keep in touch with me through Supernatural Inc. You can keep in touch with me. My personal blog is Red Eyes and Dead Batteries. You can look for it on Facebook. I don't get on there a lot. I do most everything through Paranormal Inc. these days, but either that or give the Paranormal Portal guys a shout. They'll put you in touch with me. And like I said, I travel a lot for my day job. So if you're out and about in the country, I'd love to get together with anyone and talk paranormal, have a cup of coffee and talk equipment, or go on investigations. Keep in touch.
Absolutely, brother. Well, I can't thank you enough for being here once again, and I'm so thrilled that you were with me for this journey. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do anything approaching what we were able to accomplish together and with your expertise. So I really appreciate that you've been such an integral part of the Paranormal Portal, and a great friend and a wonderful investigator. So thank you for being a part of all of it.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And let's just consider Coloma the first of many.
Absolutely, yes. And ladies and gentlemen, if you know of locations that you think deserve some proper investigating, let us know. If it's possible that we can make it out and check out other places, we'll be certain to do that. It's probably going to have to be close to home initially, but as we grow, we're going to spread our wings and get all over the place. So I just want to make sure everybody knows to stick around if you're on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, or TalkStream Live, to stick around for Paisley Wild coming up next. And she also streams on her YouTube channel at The Spaces Between, so you can check her out. But Don, anything in closing? Don, hello.
Hi. No, congratulations, Sharon.
Okay.
Make sure to get us your information, what size, what color, generally black and white, and your address, of course. There you go.
Did Isaac get a hold of us, by the way?
I spoke with Isaac at the beginning of the show, so
Okay, good. So we got that all.
he'll
taken
be
care of.
sending it to the email. Yeah.
Outstanding. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. It's going to be a weird night here after Alexa was talking to somebody out in the other room, and I don't know who. So we got a lot of figuring out to do here, guys. But I love you all, and we'll see you tomorrow night for some bedtime stories, 7 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube. Good night, everybody.